Sanji, Doin, Soji, Jonan, Loin, Janjo, and Bardo, and Dani. Jibu Sunam Jen, Dolai, Benjre, Sanje, Vrashu, Sanje, Jonan, Soji, Jonam. Janjo, Bardo, and Dani, Jabsu, Jen, Dagi, Jinsu, Jibu Sunam Jen, Dolai, Benjre, Sanje, Dobrashu, Sanje, Jonan, Soji, Chanjo Bardo Nin Jabso Jen Dagi Jinso Jebesan Dola Benjere Sanjen Dobraisho Simjan Damjen Dewan Dan Devin Judan Demra Jujen Dungan Dan Dungal Gen Judan Dora Dungan Beben Dewan Dam Mindawan Jujen Niren Chadan Nidan Daven Danyam Jembola Nebra Simjan Damjan Dewan Dan Devi Dungan Gen Judan Davain Jujan Dungan Meben Dewan Damban Dan Mindravai Nirin Chadan Nidan Dave Danyam Shembola Nebran Juroje Simjan Damjan Dewan Dan Devi Judan Dembrai Dungan Dan Dungal Ge Judan Dalvrai Juje Dungan Meben Dewan Damban Dan Mindravai Nirin Chadan Nidan Daven Danyam Jembola Nebran Juroje Chazul Wadan Chujin Shawadan Jizo Yiran Kushin So Gyalwa Jungsen Dagin Jizawan Tamjen Zobe Jangjo Jengo Saje Beche Jukshe Medo Jam Rirab Lingshe Nyede Jemba Sanje Shindo Migden Bhawayi Dogen Namda Shinlan Chebrai Sho Simje Namge Samba Loyen Cheda Chedra Wai Chejon Timon Tegwa Chejen Korloy Korodo So
Very good afternoon. I hope all of you are well. And I hope also that the same goes to all the viewers as well. Different settings. You could be doing laundry. And you have kept me on speaker. And so therefore, but nevertheless, welcome. Where we made the wish, you see, this is the beauty of Shantideva. Very subtly, he's talking about the activity of absorption. We say aspiration, prayer, parinidhana, what we do annually in Bodhgaya, parinidhana. Dana, giving, is done, of course, by the 10th chapter, dedication. Yes. So very, very subtly he's mentioning it, slipping in, without alarming us, because if we have to be so dramatic about it, then we can jump to the 10th chapter, which we do during our recitation towards the end, during the Milam in Bodhgaya. we try to dedicate. Probably that's a nice word, dedicate. So then from there onwards, then the 27th shloka, 4 lines, and says Sacho dagir zome ba ranjin jine yanam su rawan jojin chame ba namshi tanda neparjur. And so therefore it's a kind of both prayer, aspiration, at the same time a question also, you know. And so therefore saying Sacho Dagizome, about the first line says in a place that is not owned by anyone, you know. In this place of solitude, where, of course, it's a fine line, of course, you know, which border we are in. But nevertheless, to say something like, since it's all part of the agreement, you know, whoever is in a league with this agreement, they themselves don't know, actually, in absolute. But nevertheless, they have commonly agreed, commonly felt that probably this is the right thing to do. And so therefore, owning is very temporary, ephemeral. It's once again, we are brought back to the feeling of everything is transient, impermanent, changing. You can hear me at the... So, therefore, it's very comfortable, you know. We are not too fussy, you know. If you have to go to the very fine line of is this napkin taken or is this chair taken, you know. And it's part of the agreement to say very politely, it's yes, it's taken or not, you know. And then accordingly we can say, okay, I will reserve this. And so, therefore, Sacho Dagir Zomemba, without being owned, you know. And this is a very, well, according to this verse, it's very practical. Yeah. It's very practical to make use of it. Yeah. And so, in terms of, if you put it in a very poetic way, then following from the second line, saying that by nature it is abundant, it is limitless. And so, since it is free, then we can also use that space freely. Yes. Of course, to remind ourselves that this is a very poetic way of putting it. Shantideva, from the very start of this literature, said he's not poetic, you know. But we can see his humbleness, how genuinely poetic he is, meaning without sounding poetic. yet at the same time he's being extremely subtle, gentleman-like or ladylike, let's say, one could say. And so therefore in this space, and so therefore we could start from the symbolic aspect of such space that is not owned. But if you go a little bit further, if you try to be a little bit philosophical, legal, if you rely on the lawyers, then of course we will find all kinds of loopholes how this space is legal. Yes? And so therefore, as I said yesterday, if you really look around by using the power of samadhi or just meditating, simply meditating, then we will realize that we have all sorts of spaces actually, yeah? Not literally physical spaces, but what we commonly agree, If agreement is a reality, we are part of it, and so we can use this agreement in a way. And then we can be playful, we can be skillful, and to a point where we can make, however many spaces we can find, make it meaningful. So that's why I said yesterday, waiting games, waiting moments. Yeah, they are so wonderful actually. Yeah, we don't recognize it. There are so many spaces in between. We say a coffee break, time out. And then through that, it's just an excuse, of course, a very civilized way of gesturing something, but through it we will be able to find a lot of spaces, a lot of time, a lot of seclusion, a lot of solitude. And so in this case, metaphorically speaking, then the next verse, the 28th, says, with a basic necessity, lungze laso nyetse lang, nyetse as in, once again, a very profound way of putting, subtle way of putting temporary, transient. And in this case, then we can use such words like necessity. So, yang dao bin choa, or the Samyak way of living, Samyak, coherent, yes, way of living, basic necessities, yes. In that way we can learn a lot from the animal realm, cats. Whether it's a weather like right now, or a pattern of weather that is beginning, how it is, outside or inside. There was a time when I had some so-called pets. We don't know, whether I was the pet or they were the pets. We don't know. But nevertheless, there was something to learn, because where they would be during very warm afternoons, sleepy afternoons, snoozy afternoons, you could actually, not that I was doing any homework, but nevertheless, I could see from their pattern in terms of where they were mostly resting in. And if I lie down with them, then I could see that, I could experience that where they were sleeping in had the best breeze, yes, and the best sort of usage of that very condition. And so, therefore, making the most. Moff. Minimum of fuss, maximum of flavor. That's what the late Antonio Carluccio used to say. Okay, somebody saw the video. It's on BBC 4 or 3. Oh, I see. That'll be a pilgrimage site that I would love to make. So, yes, there we have it. Moff, you know. Minimum of fuss, maximum of flavor. So, yes, how wonderful it is to read Shantideva's literature. We can try to be Gennaro Cantaldo from time to time. No problem, you know. So, where was I? Yes, necessity. And so therefore, the lifestyle that the people, because we have no other way to say people or practitioners, a little bit elevated, you know, how they lived, how they went by, was that they knew, they accepted, because we all like to talk about the acceptance of karma, how to accept, yes. And so therefore, they knew that they were living within the human condition, you know, not that they were an alien or such, but nevertheless, if you romanticize, you know, to say, I'm in this foreign land, then how they got by, you know, was by accepting that yes, you need to nourish this physical body, and at the same time, to a certain degree, inspire this mental capacity, this mental nature. Yet at the same time, how to go about it in the right way, you know. Again, I said with the right way, you know, coherent way. And so therefore, Samyak way, Samyak. And so therefore, it says, just relying on the basic necessity, which brings in mind the Jungle Book animation of Disney, yes, bare necessity, yeah. Beautiful, you know. I wish I had the voice to sing along, but I wouldn't embarrass myself. And in order to help this, which comes in the next verse, is by visiting, since we are so used to feeling that I'm here, you're there, internal, external feeling, then accordingly how can we make use of this in order to complement this very, how to say, experience. Yeah. And so therefore there is such benefit in, there might be, probably, if you are trying to think like Shantideva, maybe we would use words like that, or sentencing like that, how maybe it might be beneficial to visit the cemetery, the morgue, hospitals, from time to time each of us would be forced to visit them because of our loved ones, because of circumstances, But it is supposed to be the most life-giving, hygienic place. But we don't go there, We don't want to go there, How ironic, We want hygiene, we want longevity, but we don't visit those places, Therefore, once again, I will bring back the point that it's not about trying to be contradictory to ourselves, particularly by saying, it's not personal, it's what was the word? Yes, that's it. Intimacy, yes. And so therefore, intimacy, to be very intimate. And so therefore, it's there is something there, If you want to cure, if you want to be healthy, if you want to cure our headaches, flu, pandemic, My goodness, that was a phenomenon, wasn't it? Yeah. Regardless of how we felt about it, but nevertheless, it was a phenomenon. Yes. And likewise, we are going through another one, And these rises and falls, transient nature, will continue forever. I'm not saying will, but somehow, not to make it blasphemic, but somehow this is the nature of conditioned experience, And so therefore, we feel a very strong, fervent wish. We make all kinds of fervent wishes that how can we overcome it? And so therefore Shantideva is giving direct and indirect propositions, one could say, in order to how to overcome it, And so in this case, by saying something striking, by saying something like visiting the cemetery, perhaps. And so therefore, it should be a place of pilgrimage. In this case, I would say it should. While knowing our capacity, we can put on our mask, we can wash our hands, sanitize our hands afterwards, before we eat. But nevertheless, we could visit the hospitals. We could visit a cemetery. Cemeteries are actually kind of sanitized already. So, you see, Shantideva is extremely observant, you know. He didn't say hospital, you know, or the house of medicine. Instead, he said, he's saying cemetery, Dorje. And so, by visiting such environments, it's possible. He's not saying it is guaranteed, but it is possible that we could begin to find equanimity, some sort of balance. But although the word balancing is strange, but nevertheless, we could find some form of equanimity. That's what I was trying to refer to, the last line, the fourth line. Meaning, it's possible that we would align ourselves, we could compare ourselves, or find or discover the balance, or discover in this case the natural aspect of it, how indifferent it is, you know. We think we are living, we are alive, you know, one of the previous questions, and how indifferent it is, you know, actually. If you visit a morgue, for example, you know, how strange it is, basically. How strange, yeah. Meaning, basically, okay, there is a corpse, you know, there is a corpse, and then I will lie down the same way, and then measure the length, you know, from head to toe, you know, more or less the same. And the lying position is not so different, you know. And then, since we want to measure the differences, we would like to sort of maybe close our eyes, you know, and mimic the corpse, you know. And so, and then of course, become more and more intimate, let's say, in terms of maybe, who knows, maybe this corpse is not thinking about anything, and so therefore we also try to not think, you know. Maybe it's not breathing, you know. So we will try to hold our breath for a second, you know. And so we try to, long life. It seems as touch wood, you know. Yeah. Anyway, how to say, it's very interesting. That's what he's saying. It's not necessarily saying we have to visit a morgue, we have to visit a cemetery, and so on. Or what is the place of cremation nowadays? In crematory. It's crematory. There's nothing really, you know. We have 2 crematories right there, you know. It's a place to bypass to the park, you know. And you will just see some ash, and that's it. and so it looks kind of somewhat clear, pristine, you know. But what if we visit the morgue? You know? What if we visit the hospitals? What if we visit prisons? You know? Those will be very interesting pilgrimage sites. Yeah. Living and dying. Yes. See, it sparks all kinds of imaginations. The phenomena, the transient phenomena, will then be discovered once we begin to utilize the ability of comparing. Then by the 30th verse it says, Dagi lune dinyi jang kangeti wasajang chongde minyantra minjiwa tetawananjiwa. As we examine further, you know, then we will discover. You see, now here Shantideva is beginning to talk about love. Yes, or indirectly Atma. That's it. Yes. So therefore, we shouldn't be alarmed to say to a love, you know, or the endearment, you know, thinking that there is something there, here or there or somewhere. And so, very carefully, very subtly, he's beginning to talk about what is, how come this powerful force is coming, attachment. Yes, we said something about poison the other day, or other days, and so therefore we can only talk about such form of expression, you know, Romeo and Juliet, if there is a self-existing self, Atma, yes. And so now he's beginning to talk about it, but in a very subtle way, without jumping into it. And so this 30th verse is extremely important, you know. And so Dag Lu means that this aggregate form, in this case Lu, I think a direct translation to it in Sanskrit is Rupa, you know, Rupa. And this form. Rupa, R-U-P-A, Rupa. And so, first self. You see, it's all part of meditation. Actually, each of the verses, we read the 4 lines, we try to understand it as a meditational guideline. I would say, first read the Tibetan format, you know, as part of your personal, somewhat formal practice, let's say, without telling yourself it's formal. Read 4 lines, yeah, from each chapter, from the very beginning or from the middle. And then afterwards, as a way to pay homage to the actual origin. And then whatever translation you have in your own language, read that. Just the description of the root text. Then read the commentaries accordingly, there are several or some commentaries. Read them. Then, after having read the commentaries or the root text and the commentaries, then give yourself some space and meditate. You know? And then think about what it means. Be very intimate about it, but not personal. Every time I say personal, I keep thinking about that parody of all the movies. There was once this thing called Hot Shot, particularly the part 2. It's where the Saddam Hussein, the late Saddam Hussein character, that actor character, saying, "This is not personal," you know. And so that very part, it's not personal, you know. But in this case, we're not saying it's business, you know. It's intimate. So therefore, 4 lines to come to conclusion. 4 lines. Read those 4 lines in its origin text, root text. I don't think there is any Sanskrit root text. Forget commentaries nowadays. But we are fortunate that we have it at least in one language. And so therefore read that. The wily way. Actually, for those of us who are able to read the wily way, it's very interesting, you know. If you read it the Tibetan way, the actual colloquial, contemporary Tibetan way, it has become very colloquial. But the wily way, thank goodness that exists, you know. Because then actually we can pronounce each of the words or verses in its own right. And we will never make, in short, in practical sense, make mistake in writing. Yeah. Because the wily way was, if I'm correct, it was the right way, the coherent way, the coherent way, and the appropriate and respectable way of writing. If someone spelled out the wily way, then no one will make a mistake. Otherwise, you have to think first ka, second ka, third ka, you know, from the very beginning. So yes, first we have to. Shantideva is saying we have to establish this Atma. You know. Once we have established that, then we can then we can go on to talk about its branches, its extensions. Yes, then we will not feel personal. And so therefore, dagi lune binijang kangetri wadajang. And so therefore, let's say, you know, hypothetically, let's say that there is a rupa, you know, and so therefore this is important, this is essential, and this is the base of my identity, my credentials, my diploma, my graduation, basically the whole data, you know, who I am, who I'm supposed to be at this point of time. And so therefore, let's say for a second, let's play this, you know, let's play this out and say that this is it. And so then as an extension, then let's say that just recently having compared myself, my rupa, as this body on the next table, then how different or indifferent it is actually. Whereas in the morgue, there is refrigeration, there is air conditioning, so and a lot of chemicals are being put, so therefore it is somewhat stable, But what if we let this body ferment? Let the microorganisms or mushrooms, take its course, fungi, then how it will be. And step by step, you see, it's decomposing, deconstruction. It's a non-metallical mill, if we talk about it that way. And these will manifest, out of nowhere. Our eyes cannot capture its speed, its rhythm. Yet before we know, we feel like out of nowhere something has happened. And they will take place, change color, and create all kinds of odor, smell, to be very precise, but all part of that milling, And to a point where when it's sort of fresh, then it's edible, and making the most of it, What was that term? I forget. It was part of that very series of Too Greedy Italians. I just don't remember. Maybe it's good that I forgot. Making the most of it, in short, the English translation of it. So if some of you are Italian, you'll be able to retranslate that back into Italian. So, therefore, to a certain degree, it's edible. Not to talk about carnivorism or Hannibal or to talk about those things, the extreme ideas, But nevertheless, let's say to those animals, to a certain pattern, yes, that's once again good to bring back the term pattern. To a certain pattern, this rupa can be seen as food, and accordingly, as I said yesterday, animals may see it that way, and as a result, they may participate accordingly. And so therefore, if that's the case, if we now go through, think through, then suddenly it'll bypass, it'll go beyond that, Gangati Wadajang, Wa means fox or scavengers, not actual hunters, but scavengers. And even they would not be able to sustain it, deal with it. Yeah. it will decompose and decompose and decompose to such limit that it will not just smell, but it will stink. I was trying to save that part for a later verse, actually. But somehow it happened. And so therefore, so such scavengers will not feel, to them, it will not feel appealing. Even cats can smell toe jam. They'll go, It's not just the humans, I love those videos on YouTube where you have scenes of cats just going no matter how different we feel, if you do that. What on earth just happened, And so therefore, this very Atma, this very self we so highly cherish. Of course, later on it will talk about whether it's the body, or the rupa, or highly, slightly elevated by saying kaya, and then finally sort of heading towards saying, as we say, mind. And so therefore, to basically decompose one step at a time. And so therefore, how do we actually feel about it? Because we feel that we don't want to be subjugated. We don't want to feel objectified, yes? And so therefore, how does this begin, actually? It all stems from me, or I, the self, the Atma. And so therefore, it's so fascinating, yes? It's talking about what is right in front of us. It's not hallucinating and talking about some supernatural aspect, but it's talking about the most relevant things. So then the 31st verse says, and so therefore, such rupa, such physical pattern, according to our limitation, capacity, we can pretty much say from both spiritual and through common agreement, or worldly perspective, same thing, then we can see that it was medically, scientifically birthed by itself, or alone in this case, on its own, without any companion. We can, of course, debate and say, how about twins and Siamese twins and all that? But even then, on their own. And so therefore, the whole, I don't know if you want to go tantric by saying the chakra of flesh and bones, that they are all born or integrated, composed alone, and just as it was composed, from the, what do we call that, birthplace, medically, maternity, yes. And then equally, it will, the whole network of flesh and bones will also dissolve at some point, as we are fast forwarding, on its own. In this case, we are talking about just ourselves, And so therefore, it says shikde means dismantle, sosor as in individually, ye as in sort of divide, dilute. And so, if that's the case, then forget, just saying just roughly, just by the by, then we can just imagine how the relations, the extensions, the branches, or we say mind, we can just imagine that they are also the same. Zawa Zhendao Jishigme. So therefore there's no way of even talking about it, discussing about it. And so therefore, by the 32nd verse, saying them more permanently by saying, since we are born alone, we will die alone, by the second line. And by the third line by saying, who knows, maybe there's both birthing and dying, because we would like to now, you see, it's, what if it's personal? Because we have the idea of there's being a father, there being a mother to blame. It's not because of me, it's my father's DNA, it's my mother's DNA, I have an originality, and so maybe I suffer because of my father was such and such, my mother was such and such, they were alcoholics, they were drug addicts, this and that, And so therefore, it's possible that we could become spiritual out of nowhere, We were trying to be non-spiritual, but out of nowhere, we suddenly become philosophers, spiritual beings, And so in this case, it says, no, if you really think through, because in this case it's sort of misuse of spirituality, yes? Abusing spirituality. It has its own place, it has its own time. But here we are trying to think very honestly, very truthfully. And because, why? Because this is the Bodhisattva's way. And so therefore, the third line of the 32nd verse says, Dunghal Kaljin Milena. So kal means sharing or capacity, or the idea of, collective, where we would like to think finger, hand, arm, and so on. Yes. And so therefore, yes, let's say for a second that no matter how addictive or alcoholic my parents were, at the end of the day, they had an epiphany. And so therefore they would like to take my share of my karma, as we nowadays say, accept the responsibility, which is misguided to a certain degree. And so, because it sort of feels that someone is taking responsibility and therefore, and so therefore it has become a psychology of some kind by saying, I understand, without knowing really what it means. But the noise is helpful. And so therefore we could think that in this case we are in a desperate point, to think that my part of the blame maybe it can be shared, as part of the practice of equanimity by others. So, therefore, Mlin Dunghakaji Mlin Na is a sort of a question by saying, what if, what if someone will take the fall for me? What if someone will take responsibility for me as part of humanity, If you have a single sense of humanity, tinge of humanity, maybe would you take something for me in this desperate moment? See, it's so unbelievable. The whole spectrum is explored, It's not just wishy-washy thinking, oh, compassion this, compassion that, and then you'll be all right, all will be well, But this really going through every aspect or spectrum. And so therefore, then saying that, no, if you really, really think through, if you really want to be honest with yourself, it's your own karma. But when we say your own karma, it feels like you are here, karma is somewhere there, and you own it. Just as how we have believed that there's a self, and by extension there is a karma, but not in that sense. It's saying you are the karma. And so therefore, it cannot be shared. How is this beginning? Was there a beginning to this? Was there an origin to this? It's been talked, discussed right now. And so, how can we even, not to sound so knowing, how can we fathom, How can we change the subject by saying, where is the origin? Because it's you, or it's me. And so, in that sense, through honesty, through acceptance, we will arrive at the point, I think. Anyway, I went a little too far here, so excuse me. By observing here and now, basically me, the self, or the Atma, I'm not trying to convert my Atma into an Atma, but I'm just trying to be as honest as possible in discovering if this Atma is in fact an Atma existing. And so now, to a certain degree, I've discovered that no, it's changing, And so, therefore, now I can sort of let go, actually. Without, well, of course this is not part of it, but I'm just, branching out. I love this thing. It was a thing by David Lynch, the late David Lynch. I love this, yeah. I'm giving it away. You think and you think, ideas and ideas. No, but it's amazing, it's just frictions after frictions, yeah, subtle frictions, more evident frictions, and nothing else, yeah. And so therefore, if we allow it, yeah, then it's very, very interesting. Then it's not abandoning the idea of, oh, I have a Buddha nature, you have a Buddha nature, therefore I have to have compassion. And if I see my friends as in this degenerate way, will I abandon my compassion? And the gospel has it that no, we don't have to worry that way. And in fact, we can continue to be honest. That Gekje Zawe Chishikja, the fourth line of the 32nd verse, saying, for now, as I'm working on something, whether by wearing a robe, I don't know, whatever color, or having part of my hair removed, I have created a symbol to warn others that I'm working on something very interesting. So, therefore, in this case, for now, there is no point, there is no meaning, purposelessness, or purposelessness, is, oh, that sounded racist. Sorry about that. That there is no point in thinking that those who cannot compute. That sounds weird also. Or those who cannot understand, those who cannot comprehend, this amazing, this limitless, this unfathomable nature, beauty. For now, I must keep some distance. Kikche nzawe, jishikcha. Nzawe means sort of to be friendly, to be close to them, to be personal with them. It has no point. For now, I must keep my distance. With a heavy heart, if you want to be dramatic about it, But in short, excluding the sentiment, it's basically being very honest. And so therefore, then now how would this feel, this journey would feel, Will we feel lonely? Possible, And so therefore the 33rd verse says, Lamta dunna shupam chidara nenen zin chidara tejin sipi lam shupam jevenene yongsin zin. And so therefore it's possible. Shantideva is not saying, oh, it's easy ride, You will just swim through it. And everything will be all right, all is well, He's, not that he's forced to be honest, but he's genuinely, because he has nothing to lose in this case. And that's why he's known as a Mahasiddha. Yes. And so therefore, a yogi, the term we all like, yes, doesn't have to look in a certain way, doesn't have to behave in a certain way, doesn't have to be consistent in a certain way, yes. But just by being themselves will show the way, become a tunpa, meaning the shower, the one who shows the way. And so therefore, for those of us who are on that path, and metaphorically, literally, by giving example, by showing the way, then it is possible that we may feel a little bit lonely, that now I'm on my own. I have no father, I have no mother, I have none of this, none of that, I have no friends. Will I make it, And so therefore, it's possible from time to time. That's what Shantideva is saying. You see, it's constantly talking about the most relative thing, the most tangible thing we can feel every day.